Have you ever heard a question that makes your heart pause? A question that feels heavy because it touches both history and belief? Something that many have asked, yet few truly understand? That question is, why did the Prophet, peace be upon him, marry Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, at a young age? Before we go any further, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love you to subscribe to our channel. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more interesting stories. Stick with us till the very end. And if the story moves you, drop your thoughts in the comments and share with your loved ones. It is a question that has traveled through centuries, from curious minds in the past of the modern world, whispered in classrooms, debated online, and sometimes used to challenge faith itself. And yet, to answer it, we must pause. We must step back, breathe, and look at a world very different from ours, a world that existed more than 1,400 years ago in the desert of Arabia under the endless sky, where life flowed to rhythms that today's hearts might find strange. Imagine the streets of Mecca and Medina long ago, sand underfoot, the warm sunlight kissing the earth, families gathering in their homes, children running freely through narrow alleys. Society was simple yet layered with traditions and wisdom passed from one generation to the next. In this world, customs guided people's lives, how they worked, how they worshipped, and yes, how they married. Back then, the way people understood adulthood was very different. Today, we count years, 16, 18, 21. But in 7th century Arabia, adulthood was measured by signs of maturity, both physical and mental. A person who could think, feel responsibility, and contribute to society was considered ready for marriage. It was natural, respected, and honorable. And so enters young Aisha, a girl of intelligence, curiosity, and gentle heart. She grew up in a household that loved her deeply, guided by her family's wisdom. Even as a child, she had a spark in her eyes, a mind that soaked in knowledge, and a spirit that radiated kindness. But Aisha's life, as many know, took a turn that would later become one of the most misunderstood stories in Islamic history. Her marriage to the Prophet, peace be upon him. Before we continue, let us pause here. Feel the weight of misunderstanding. In today's world, this story can stir doubt, confusion, even anger. People hear of her age and immediately react, forgetting that history cannot be measured by modern standards. They judge a world they do not know, with eyes that see only the present. And yet, the truth is far deeper than surface impressions. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was known for his wisdom, his mercy, and his profound love for humanity. He never acted unjustly, nor did he ever harm anyone. His decisions were guided by divine revelation, the guidance of Allah, and understanding of people's hearts and needs. And so, when he married Aisha, it was not an act of whim or desire. It was an act embedded in wisdom, respect, and divine purpose. Think about this for a moment. A marriage in that time was not only a personal bond, but also a social trust. Families, communities, and the future generations relied on the stability and honor of such unions. Aisha was not a victim. She was a beloved daughter, entering a partnership built on care, guidance, and respect. Her life with the Prophet, peace be upon him, would become a beacon for generations to come. Yet, in our world today, many see only the numbers, a young age, a famous figure, a seemingly shocking union. And from this surface view, doubt arises. But history teaches us that truth is never found in numbers alone. It is found in context, in understanding the people, the time, and the purpose. And the purpose of this marriage was extraordinary. Aisha would grow to become one of the most knowledgeable women in Islamic history. She would memorize and teach thousands of hadiths, preserving the sayings and actions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, with unmatched dedication. She would guide companions, scholars, and believers, shaping the understanding of Islam itself. Her early years or youth became a gift of the world, a gift that could only flourish under divine wisdom. And yet, we must acknowledge the tension in this story. It is human to feel confusion when faced with something we cannot immediately understand. It is human to question. That is why we start this journey with the question itself, the one that lingers in hearts and minds. Why did this happen? Was it right? Was it fair? These questions are not shameful. They're the very doorway to understanding, reflection, and eventually clarity. As we walk further into the story, imagine yourself stepping into the streets of Medina, seeing the world through the eyes of those who lived it, feeling the rhythm of a society built on faith, honor, and responsibility. Understand that Aisha was not just a name, not just a number, not just an age. She was a vibrant, beloved human being, chosen by Allah to play a role that would echo through history. Our journey has just begun. Ahead lies the story of a world very different from ours, the life of a remarkable young girl, and the timeless mercy and guidance of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So pause for a moment, take a breath, let your heart open, your mind reflect, and your soul prepare for a story that is as human as it is divine. The answers will unfold, not as a lecture, but as a journey through history, through love, through wisdom that transcends time. To understand Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, and her life, we must first step into the world she was born into, a world so different from our own, yet full of lessons and wisdom that still echo today. Imagine the desert of Arabia, stretching endlessly under the sun, the wind carrying the scent of sand and date palms. Life was simple, yet layered with meaning. Families lived close together, connected not only by blood but by community, honor, and trust. In this world, children were cherished. Girls and boys alike learned from their families, helping in the home, tending to animals, and understanding their place in the community. Education was not just reading and writing. It was the learning of character, manners, and faith. From a young age, children were guided to grow into responsible, moral adults. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, grew up in this environment, a daughter of a caring family. Her father, Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, was one of the closest companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and a man of great honor and wisdom. Aisha's upbringing was filled with love, attention, and guidance. She was intelligent, quick to learn, and curious about the world around her. She asked questions, listened carefully, and observed life with sharp mind and a tender heart. It is important to remember that in those days, age was understood differently than we understand today. People did not rely on numbers alone. Instead, maturity was measured by physical development, emotional understanding, and readiness to take on responsibility. When a person reached puberty and demonstrated a sense of judgment and awareness, they were considered ready for adulthood and for marriage. Young girls like Aisha were respected and valued, their voices and actions carefully considered by their families. Marriage was not a rushed or careless decision. It was a union that reflected honor, trust, and social responsibility. The families involved knew the importance of guiding young people into partnerships that were balanced and nurturing. As Aisha grew, she displayed qualities that set her apart. Even as a child, she had a keen understanding of people and a sensitivity that many adults admired. She could remember details, understand lessons, and interact with her community with grace. These qualities would later make her one of the most important narrators of hadith in Islamic history. But life was not just about learning and family. Arabia was a land of tradition, faith, and social bonds. Communities relied on one another for support, for protection, and for guidance. Decisions, including marriage, were not just personal. They were part of a wider social fabric. This is why the union of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and Aisha was seen not as unusual or inappropriate at the time, but as a natural and honorable step, guided by wisdom and faith. Even though Aisha was young, her environment prepared her for the role she would play. She was nurtured with knowledge, values, and love, foundations that allowed her to grow into a woman who would preserve the teachings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, for generations. Her age was not a limitation. It was the beginning of a path that would lead to greatness. Now, imagine the tension that arises when the story is seen through modern eyes. We are used to measuring childhood and adulthood by numbers, by societal norms that are entirely different from those of Arabia 14 centuries ago. A girl of 10 or 12 today is not considered ready for marriage. But in that world, maturity was measured by readiness, understanding, and the ability to carry responsibility. Aisha possessed all of these qualities. Her marriage to the Prophet, peace be upon him, was, in fact, a reflection of deep respect. She was entering a partnership with a man who was known for his mercy, his wisdom, and his guidance. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was not only a religious leader, but also a model of ethics, kindness, and justice. In choosing to marry Aisha, he was honoring her, protecting her, and trusting in her ability to grow and learn alongside him. Even today, we can feel the weight of misunderstanding when we hear about her young age. But when we step into her world, we see a girl who was prepared, guided, and respected. We see a society where such unions were normal, a society that valued honor, knowledge, and faith over numbers. Aisha's life in her family home, surrounded by love and learning, prepared her for what was to come. She was a child, yes, but a child of knowledge, awareness, and character. Her age was a measure of her journey, not a limitation on her ability to contribute to Islam or to live a life of meaning. As we reflect on this, we begin to see why the marriage was not only acceptable but also wise. It was a step taken in love, respect, and divine guidance. Aisha was not merely a participant in history. She became one of its most important keepers. Through her memory, her intelligence, and her dedication, she preserved the words and actions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, for future generations. It is important to understand the world she lived in, the customs she followed, and the society that shaped her. It is about seeing Aisha not through the lens of modern assumptions, but through the eyes of her time, eyes that saw honor, readiness, and the unfolding of a destiny guided by Allah. History teaches patience and reflection. When we learn to step into the past with humility and curiosity, the truth becomes clearer. Aisha was not a victim. She was a bright, beloved young girl, prepared for a role that would leave a lasting legacy. The moment finally came, a moment that would be remembered, discussed, and misunderstood for centuries. A moment when Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the bright, intelligent, and beloved daughter of Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, became the wife of the Prophet, peace be upon him. But before we rush to judgment, let us step gently into that story and feel it as it truly was. Aisha's marriage was not an act of whim, desire, or imbalance. It was an act of wisdom, divine guidance, and respect. In her youth, Aisha carried qualities that were extraordinary: a sharp mind, an eager heart, and a readiness to learn. She had grown in a household that valued faith, knowledge, and moral character. These were not qualities that age alone could measure. They were the signs of maturity that mattered most. The Prophet, peace be upon him, known for his mercy and insight, did not make choices lightly. He acted with Allah's guidance, with love for humanity, and with understanding of hearts. When he married Aisha, it was a union rooted in honor. She was not a passive participant. She was entering a partnership with a man of unparalleled character, a man who would treat her with love, kindness, and respect every single day. Imagine the scene: a young girl, aware yet guided, meeting the Prophet, peace be upon him, who greeted her with compassion, patience, and care. It was a meeting that would shape history, not because of numbers or society's judgments, but because of the wisdom and purpose behind it. Every word, every gesture, every moment of their life together reflected mercy and divine guidance. Aisha's life with the Prophet, peace be upon him, was filled with love and learning. She observed his kindness to others, his fairness, his patience with children, the poor, and the oppressed. She learned not just from words, but from the example of his character, the rhythm of his prayers, and the depth of his wisdom. She became his companion in the truest sense, not only a wife, but a student, a helper, and eventually a teacher to generations. Through her, the teachings of Islam were preserved. She memorized and narrated over 2,000 hadiths, sharing the Prophet's words, actions, and guidance. She taught companions, scholars, and believers for decades. Without her, much of the Prophet's private life, his manners, his daily routines, his advice, might have been lost to time. This was no ordinary role. It was a sacred trust, a responsibility entrusted to someone chosen by Allah himself. But let us pause and address the tension that arises in modern minds. When people hear about her young age, they often feel shock, doubt, or even disbelief. They compare the past to the present, forgetting that culture, norms, and maturity were different. Back then, Aisha's qualities, her intelligence, awareness, and readiness to learn, made her fully capable of the life she entered. Her youth was a beginning, not a limitation. Even more, the marriage was a source of blessing and honor. The Prophet, peace be upon him, treated Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, with utmost respect, always considering her feelings, always teaching with patience, always valuing her intellect. She was loved, cherished, and given a voice that would echo through history. She never felt oppressed. Instead, she flourished, becoming one of the greatest scholars of her time. We must also remember the wisdom behind the timing. Aisha's youth allowed her to dedicate many years to learning, observing, and teaching the ways of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Her memory, energy, and heart were able to absorb the knowledge that would later guide millions. In a very real sense, her age was a part of Allah's plan, a plan that ensured the preservation of Islamic knowledge for generations. The story grows even more profound when we consider how she influenced others. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, taught women, men, companions, and scholars alike. She became a source of guidance on matters of worship and daily life. Her role was not just domestic, it was public, intellectual, and deeply spiritual. Through her, we see the mercy and wisdom of the Prophet, peace be upon him, who nurtured, guided, and empowered her to fulfill this sacred role. Now, think for a moment about the criticisms that arise today. People often see only the age, not the context, not the purpose, not the mutual respect and love. They judge through the lens of modern society, forgetting that the standards of 7th century Arabia were entirely different. And yet, history shows us that none of the Prophet's contemporaries, including his opponents, accused him of wrongdoing. The marriage was lawful, respected, and honorable in every sense. This is the heart of the story: wisdom, love, and divine purpose. Aisha's marriage was not a crime, not an injustice, but a partnership that served humanity, preserved Islam, and reflected the mercy of Allah. Through her, the Prophet, peace be upon him, S teachings were safeguarded, not only for companions, but for every generation that would follow. And so, as we walk through this chapter, feel the depth of the story. Picture Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, growing in knowledge and grace. Picture the Prophet, peace be upon him, leading with love, patience, and wisdom. See the world not as critics might today, but as it truly was, a world where faith, character, and divine guidance shaped every decision. The rising tension of misunderstanding is real, but the resolution is found in context. The lesson is clear. Age is not the measure of value or ability. Wisdom, guidance, and divine purpose are. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, was chosen not because of the number, but because of her heart, her mind, and her readiness to preserve what was most sacred. And so, the story of their marriage is not just a historical fact. It is a story of love, respect, and divine wisdom. It is a story that teaches us about context, about mercy, and about the ways Allah plans for the good of humanity. It reminds us that what may seem strange to the modern eye can carry profound wisdom and blessings beyond our understanding. As we are going toward the end of this story, let your heart reflect on the beauty of this union. A young girl, nurtured with love and knowledge, entering a life with the most compassionate man to ever walk the earth. A marriage that will preserve the words and actions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, for generations, empowering a woman to become one of Islam's greatest teachers. The story continues, but the lesson is clear. Divine wisdom surpasses human judgment, and love and respect are the foundation of every sacred union. Now, let's talk about the lessons for today. How this story, so distant in time, still speaks to our hearts, challenges our assumptions, and inspires us to defend the Prophet, peace be upon him, with knowledge and love. We have traveled through time and space, from the deserts of Arabia to the minds and hearts of modern viewers. We have walked beside Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, as a child, grown with her under the guidance of her loving family, and witnessed the wisdom and mercy of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in their union. Now we ask, what does this story mean for us today? At first, it may seem distant, something that happened long ago, in a world we cannot fully imagine. Yet, the lessons are alive, waiting for us to understand them, to feel them, and to apply them in our own lives. Lesson 1, understanding context. One of the most important lessons is that history cannot be judged by today's standards alone. We live in a world where childhood, adulthood, and marriage have very specific ages attached to them. But in 7th century Arabia, life worked differently. Maturity was measured by character, knowledge, and readiness, not by a number on a calendar. When we understand context, the confusion fades. What seems shocking at first becomes a story of wisdom, guidance, and purpose. It reminds us that human understanding is limited, and that Allah's plan is far greater than our own. Lesson 2. Divine Wisdom. Every detail of Aisha's life, from her upbringing to her marriage to the Prophet, peace be upon him, was guided by Allah's wisdom. Her youth allowed her to grow into a scholar who would preserve the Prophet's words, actions, and teachings. Her age was not a limitation. It was part of a divine plan that ensured the guidance of Islam would reach future generations. This is a lesson in trust. Trust in Allah's plan, trust in His wisdom, and trust that what may seem unusual to us can have a profound purpose beyond our understanding. Lesson 3. Love, respect, and mercy. The marriage of Aisha and the Prophet, peace be upon him, was built on love, respect, and mercy. He treated her with gentleness, patience, and care every day. She flourished under his guidance, becoming a source of knowledge and inspiration for countless people. This teaches us about the nature of true relationships, whether in marriage, family, or community. Respect, understanding, and kindness are the foundations of lasting bonds, and they honor the human heart in ways that numbers or social expectations cannot measure. Lesson 4. Defending the Prophet, peace be upon him, with knowledge. Many people today see only a fragment of this story and rush to judgment. But the role of a believer is not only to love the Prophet, peace be upon him, but also to understand and defend him with wisdom and knowledge. Defending the Prophet, peace be upon him, is not about arguing or debating angrily. It is about sharing context, truth, and reflection. It is about showing the mercy, wisdom, and guidance that characterizes life. And it is about helping others see beyond the surface, to understand the deeper lessons hidden within history. Lesson 5. Preserving knowledge and legacy. Aisha's life reminds us of the importance of preserving knowledge and sharing it with others. Through her, the words and actions of Prophet, peace be upon him, were not lost. They became a light for generations. We too can take inspiration from this. Every act of learning, teaching, and guiding others is a part of preserving wisdom for the future. Even in small ways, we can be like Aisha, carriers of knowledge, protectors of truth, and beacons of guidance. Lesson 6. Looking beyond modern assumptions. Finally, this story teaches us humility. Modern society has its rules, and rightly so, but those rules are not universal across time or place. Judging the past without understanding it can lead to misunderstanding and confusion. Aisha's marriage to the Prophet, peace be upon him, is a powerful reminder that age alone does not determine value, wisdom, or capability. What matters is the heart, the mind, and the purpose that Allah has placed in every life. A heartfelt reflection. As we close this story, picture Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, one last time, not as a number, not as a subject of criticism, but as a young girl full of life, growing under love and guidance. Picture the Prophet, peace be upon him, guiding, nurturing, and respecting her, teaching her the ways of faith, wisdom, and mercy. Picture the bond they shared, a bond that preserved the words of Allah's messenger, peace be upon him, for all time. Let your heart feel the depth of this story. The story is not just about marriage or age. It is about divine wisdom, love, mercy, and the preservation of truth. It is a story that teaches us patience, reflection, and understanding. And most importantly, it reminds us that defending the Prophet, peace be upon him, is an act of love, a love that grows when we understand history, see the wisdom in Allah's plans, and share the truth with others. So, if you ever feel doubt, confusion, or curiosity about this story, remember to look beyond numbers and modern assumptions, to reflect on the context, the culture, and the divine plan, to see the love, respect, and mercy that define the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his household, and to learn from Aisha's life, the courage, knowledge, and dedication she carried. Thank you for sticking with us this far. Please subscribe to this channel and share this video.